Some of you may have received this document on your WhatsApp just this week, claiming Lok Sabha elections will be held on April 19th. The viral image forced the Election Commission of India to call it out as fake. And the 2024 elections in India are still at least 2.5 to 3 months away. Dates are not out yet. Fake news, disinformation, misinformation has several forms and usually far more intensive and unfortunately immersive during the election season, fueled by great technological advances, which by itself are not negative, in fact are great avenues if used well. Social media seems to be the biggest mode to transfer, communicate all of these various forms of fake news. Political parties, their IT cells and their supporters often turning into a factory for fake news. Just the last Telangana elections, a 7-second fake video of BRS's KT Rama Rao was widely circulated on the voting day, asking people to vote for Congress. The assembly elections last year witnessed AI-generated cloned voice messages attempting to mislead voters. But the expanse has also changed so much. You have deepfakes. In Delhi, BJP's Manoj Tiwari used deepfake videos to reach out to voters. The DMK Youth Wing conference in Salem on January 21st had a surprise speaker, M. Karunanidhi. Well, it was an AI-generated video of Kalaingar telling the gathering how the BJP government at the centre is trampling upon state rights, and a day later praised MK Stalin for good governance. Now, this isn't misinformation or disinformation, but it is use of AI or deepfakes, which is only likely to escalate in elections. How does one draw the boundaries? There are opportunities and there are threats and there are collaborations. The latest is Google to announce support for Shakti, India election and fact-checking collaborative collective to counter misinformation and deepfakes. They claim the focus will be on connecting independent fact-checkers, regional publishers, training resources in fact-checking, among others. In February earlier, Meta announced a dedicated fact-checking helpline on WhatsApp for users in India, launched in partnership with the country's Misinformation Combat Alliance. The helpline will specifically work to assess media that has been generated by artificial intelligence, otherwise known as deepfakes. People will be able to flag deepfakes to a WhatsApp chatbot available in English and 3 Indian languages, Hindi, Tamil and Telugu. At a time when India is headed towards general elections, a survey by the World Economic Forum, remember, found that India ranks first in facing the highest risk of misinformation and disinformation in the world. Beyond elections, perceptions of reality are likely also to become more polarized, infiltrating the public discourse on issues ranging from public health to social justice. As truth is undermined, the risk of domestic propaganda and censorship will also rise in turn. That's what the report said. In response to misinformation and disinformation, governments could be increasingly empowered to control information based on what they determine to be true. So there's the two sides of it. How do you control? Then do you control more of information to filter out disinformation? But then how can state be allowed to do something like that? Disinformation will also be increasingly personalized to its recipients and targeted to specific groups. These are the details of the report that was released earlier this year. We are trying to understand today, how can these collaborations work to be able to filter out fake news, disinformation, misinformation fueled by tech, as well as try to understand what are the threats really to India's massive democratic process, the elections. I'm right now being joined by Sanjay Jha, who's an author, Virag Gupta, who's a cyber law expert, Prashanto Roy, who's a public policy and technology analyst, as well as Jency Jacob, who's a managing editor for Boom. Thank you very much, all four of you, for joining us. Jency Jacob, let me just come across to you first. Could you try and help us understand what would, not any one particular collaboration in particular mean, but when we are looking at these range of collaborations that are coming together, ahead of the big elections in India? What is at the heart of it? Are these practically workable collaborations?
It's the right question you have asked right at the beginning of the show. You know, the one big problem that always as we have seen during ahead of any big event, in this case at least during the elections, is the fact that there's so much of disaggregation in terms of the kind of work that fact checkers do, and we are extremely small in number and in size as well. And whatever stories we debunk, all the claims that we call out, now it is also deepfake as a part of it. It has very limited distribution. So in many ways, these collaborations will help because there is a wide range of mainstream media organizations, both television and print, and as well as digital, who do not have in-house fact-checking news reporters with them, nor the desks to understand how fact-checking has to be done. While through these collaborations, what we're trying to do is to bring the larger community together, to offer them our stories as part of Creative Commons and say that, listen, we have already debunked these stories. If you want to pick it up, translate it into the languages in which you publish, and you can use these stories so that their audiences also get the benefit of all the claims that are getting fact checked. So that's, in short, that is what we are trying to do to increase the distribution of fact checks so that as soon as these claims go viral in different languages and different regional languages around the country, there are publishers across the country who are also picking up these stories, and they are all welcome to be part of this consortium.
Right. Prashanto, if I can come to you. Prashanto, misinformation, disinformation, all of this was already there. It was there during elections. It used to be the propaganda has always been part of elections across political lines. But when you look at the way tech has advanced, the challenges that seem to come forward with this are at altogether a different level, particularly if you're looking at consumers as ordinary voters. Very less that can actually be filtered out by them from what they are looking on their on their social media. I mean, there was a time when we would laugh at a generation, call them uncles or grandfathers or grandmothers, and say that, they can't distinguish. But now, even if you're talking about a young person, it's very difficult to distinguish certain tech-based generative disinformation, misinformation, propaganda videos.
No, absolutely. I think, the starting problem is this enormous in the population that we have, about 1 billion mobile users or more, 800 million smartphone users. A lot of them simply consume video. So there's different levels of literacy. If you look at the lower literacy, bottom of the pyramid, and the mid-range, they consume video without really analyzing or trying to vet the veracity and, of that video. So in the past, even before AI, video was so easy to repurpose. You could just pick out a video which could have been violence in Nigeria and say that this is, minority community beating up majority community here or whatever. And if it kind of resonates with the ideology of the people who receive it, they will send it out and they'll propagate it. Now, the problem is fact checking is essential, but the virality of fake news is multiple orders of magnitude higher than the virality of fact checking. And I'm hoping that this amplification with Google, with Shakti, and the collective of fact checkers, etc., this will help bridge that gap somewhat to an extent, but it's still not easy because once again fake news will spread much faster and much ahead of anything that you can do to fact check it. That is unfortunately a reality, especially as we head into the elections.
Right. Sanjay Jha, do you see, I mean, there's no political party that can be whitewashed or can sit on a higher pedestal, but do you see the use of AI or deepfakes escalate in 2024 elections? Do you see that as a major mode of reaching out to voters?
Sneha, I have to regretfully say that India remains highly susceptible to fake news. If you want to see a perfect example of that, go back to when the women wrestlers were protesting on the streets of Delhi. And you found that there was a deep fake video which showed that they were actually looking very happy and thrilled with life when they had been arrested and put into a van, when the truth was exactly the opposite. So I can tell you that go back to the US presidential elections between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And everybody knows about the Russian interference that led to a lot of people. And that was, by the way, pre-AI disinformation campaign that led to many people believing, and actually even today, many Republicans actually believe that Hillary Clinton ran a child sex prostitution racket. So, end of day, you are living in a world where people are fed information repeatedly. It is very cleverly distorted. And when you are living in echo chambers, you tend to not just buy into it, you proliferate that. And I can tell you the risk that we have is, and especially for India, is that it's not just about, trying to damage a particular political party or a candidate. It actually can become a societal problem because it can result in communal polarization. It can result in violence. And end of day, I think we can all pay a massive price, as a consequence of a political contest. And I do believe that at the moment, the kind of culture we have, or what we call as a WhatsApp university in our political vocabulary, is not a joke. Because we all know it. I don't want to make this comment political because this particular conversation about one party or the other. But the truth is that while
Absolutely.
all parties are guilty, definitely, of having indulged in speculative content, there is no denying that there are some parties who have mastered the art of really spreading disinformation, and I would say misinformation, as part of political strategy. And this, by the way, need not necessarily be
Okay.
about just a campaign. It can be about data. It can be about XYZ. But definitely, I've seen that for a fact, that a certain leader of a political party has been a real victim of a sustained campaign which has basically tried to vilify the person or objectify the person as being somebody who's not smart
Okay.
enough to be in Indian politics. And the consequences are pretty, I
All
would say,
right.
deleterious for India, because in a democracy you need to have a freedom of expression, and most importantly, the buyer or the consumer of that information must get impartial content. That unfortunately is not happening. So I deeply welcome, Sneha, this initiative by Google and the others. But I do hope at the end of the day that the mainstream media, responsible channels like yours, are actually people who kind of flag, or rather red flag, these issues. Because I think, as I think Jenny mentioned earlier, that end of day, unless there is a massive
Gen Z.
distribution of what is truth, or the wheat from the chaff, yet the large masses of India may not know the truth. We are very privileged that we might access it on a Twitter, but large sections of India will never know the truth. So the
Okay.
job is not yet
Sanjay,
finished.
Sanjay, let me just get in Virag Gupta as well with his introductory remarks. Virag, you've heard Sanjay as well speak, but very quickly and without getting into very technical things, because the problem with legal aspects and economic aspects is it's very, it can be very distant to common person. Without getting into technicalities, can you just tell us, are these deep fakes or tech generated misinformation, disinformation, are they legally challengeable in India? For the sake of our viewers.
Certainly, they are legally challengeable, and as per Article 324, free and fair elections are the foundation of democracy, and election commission is empowered. In 2013 October, on the basis of our representation, Election Commission issued the social media guidelines by which all the candidates have to submit the affidavit and give their details. And free and fair elections are required. That's why in the last 48 hours before the polling, there can't be any campaigning. But during that period, all this even the right campaigning is not allowed. So these fake news or the deep fakes certainly cannot be permitted. Now, there are four aspects. First, all the IT cells of these political parties are illegal. That is first thing. Secondly, when we are talking about the fact check, so let us understand the magnitude of this fake news.
No, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that IT cells of political parties are illegal? What do you mean by that?
Because what happened, there is no such details of these IT cells with the election commission. Secondly, whatsoever their expenses are there, it is not on record. So everything is everything is undercover behind the scene, and all those things which are being done are against the guidelines issued by the election commission, because for each and every expense it has to be accounted. And the second point is, we have compiled the details
That's
of
interesting. That's an interesting
monthly
interpretation.
report given by Google, Facebook, and the Google, Google, Facebook, and Twitter. And in the last 2 years, 213 crore, I am repeating, 213 crores, they have reported the objectionable content and objectionable accounts. Now they have taken the suo motu action, but those have not been reported by the police. Those have not come in the record of the NCRB. And in that scenario, how much impact may be there in the elections because of these fake news and these deep fakes and everything. Now the third aspect is that as per those guidelines, observers who are appointed in the constituencies, they must be given details of the designated officers of these companies, so that objectionable content can be immediately removed.
Okay. Right. Prashanto, for people who may be watching you at this point and who are going to be voting in elections to come, I don't even know whether this is a practical thing to ask, but just out of curiosity, what should they be watching out for? How should they even discern whether what they are watching on their phone is correct? I mean, it's, I think, important to explain to everyone that it has to be seen in a larger context and seen across multiple sources, and not just one thing that's coming up on your, whatever the source may be at that point.
Absolutely. So, I think one key problem, like I said, is you have this literacy gradient. You look at a pyramid, and it's really, we are talking about the top few layers of the pyramid where we can try and analyze what to look out for. Now, I think Jinsi mentioned a couple of areas, but there's a third major area, which is financial scams. Now, for example, there are these deep fakes of Narayan Murthy and, Nandan Nilekani and so on speaking in video. Basically, audio has been overlaid. The video is real, but the audio has been overlaid. Now, if you listen, I mean, I know Narayan Murthy and I know how he speaks, and this is different, okay? But the average person is not going to, I mean, he's going to see Narayan Murthy saying, I have invested my money, millions of dollars on this great trading platform, and I put in 10,000 rupees and I got 100,000 rupees, and you will do the same. And people will go ahead and put their money. Now, you can tell them, watch out for the nuances and how he speaks, and it's different, etc. So that's going to be very difficult. So what's going to be really important is this, amplification of this kind of fact checking, and really it's very difficult to keep up with it. I mean, I'm sure Narayan Murthy and Nandan Nilekani and all these people are very, very angry about being, misused, their videos being, overlaid with audio which is not theirs, and they're being potentially causing loss of money for people. Okay, now take that to the elections, and once again you have a very horrific situation where Cambridge Analytica, at the time that Sanjay Jha was speaking about in the US elections and Brexit, Cambridge Analytica, there was early use of AI analytics to change public opinion fairly drastically. Now we've come to the stage where AI has been democratized enough for people to just, you and me, to modify images and videos. So the scale of the problem is really, really drastic. And it's not easy to try and educate people to look out for stuff, even though we must, of course, try. What is really needed is the amplification of these fact-checking efforts dramatically, and I'm glad it's Google, and I hope Facebook will do it, and I hope mainstream media, like Sanjay Jha said, should actually take this up, this amplification.
Absolutely. At least they have to be part of the solution in this particular problem, for sure. Sanjay Jha, I was reading a very interesting survey, and it spoke about the impact of AI and deepfakes largely on voters. And it's very interesting what I read about it, and this is by the London School of Economics for that matter. It spoke about how whether you're a decided voter who've decided, or you have a particular, or you're an undecided voter, the result of this on you is going to be very different. Largely, if you're an undecided voter, it may or may not sway you towards a particular side. But if you are a decided voter, if you have a particular line of thought, it's much higher chances that you would take any particular misinformation, disinformation, or a video that comes up before you which matches your line of thinking as correct, as authentic. So the split effect of something like this is also very interesting to see. How do you largely see the impact of this on voters? I mean, voters are seen to be very discerning, but this could obviously beat the most discerning as well, Sanjay. That's really where the problem is.
See, Sneha, there are two aspects of it in politics. Number one is that all political parties have a core vote bank. But, because everybody, you don't know your voters personally, political parties invest significant amount of their time capital in first ensuring that their catchment area is strong, which is why you feed into echo chambers. Many people will tell you, why are you preaching to the choir? But political parties do it because they fear losing their core vote bank over a sustained period of time to the opposition party. So that's one part of the story, which is why people feed into a story that they like. There are many people of the right wing who watch particular type of TV channels. And for example, in America, they watch Fox. And a certain kind of, maybe the left liberal, as we call them, will watch a CNN or an MSNBC. So I think there is a clear division that people like to believe is more credible. That I want to tell you where the worry lies. The worry in a country like ours is that a large part of Indian voters are actually swing voters. Unlike a two-party system like America, where you have, red states and blue states, in India, there is a large section of voters who are actually very malleable to changing their opinion. Take an example of the recent elections. The Congress lost and the BJP won in Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh. So these are actually not, Hindutva state or a liberal state. They are actually swing states. Now that is where the fake news really is meant to really make an impact, because that is going to have an outcome impact on the election. My worry, Sneha, and I want to put it down here for all your eminent panelists to comment on, is there going to be a consequence on the candidates who are spreading it? Because who spreads fake news, right? Either it's a candidate, or it's the political party, or it's a supporter of a political party or a candidate. Within these three candidates, within these three segments, anybody who's spreading it, because it is out there, their identity is known, you have to have consequences for the political party or the candidate or the supporter. Is the election commission empowered to take action which will have consequences, like debarring a candidate or debarring a political party from a constituency? These are issues that will make our democracy healthy. I want to be a little skeptical here. Let's not be too romantic because of this whole Shakti initiative. We are living in times where the Supreme Court has said that the electoral bond was a corrupt, unethical, unconstitutional norm of funding. So that's a big, big worry. You saw what happened in the Chandigarh elections, open attempt to try and hijack an election. We have serious issues of public and political morality. I think the battle is begun. I will wish it the best. I think we'll all try.
Okay. Virag, do you want to respond to this, Virag? Is the Election Commission empowered to take decisions to ensure that there are consequences, particularly in cases where it's very well known who is the propagator of a video or a fake news?
Election Commission has all the powers, and this was reflected in the notification of 2013, wherein this internet and digital media was equated with the electronic media. Now there are two aspects. Your original question was about the IT cells. Now, whatsoever campaigning is there, that campaigning has to be accountable. All the advertisements are to be approved by the Election Commission. And secondly, all the expenses are to be recorded. Since these IT cells are working behind the scenes, so nothing is on the records, that's why they are illegal. Now, secondly, all the misinformation, disinformation, fake videos, everything, these all are crimes as per the IT Act, IPC and Representation of People Act. Now, simply fact checking is not enough. There has to be some complaint is to be recorded as per the directions of the Election Commission. Now, for that purpose, there are two wings of the law as per the present IT Act regime. One is, if anybody is aggrieved, so any candidate is aggrieved, so they can directly contact the grievance officers, which are appointed as per the IT intermediary rules in the K. N. Govindachar matter by the Delhi High Court. Now, those grievance officer details, most of the people don't know, and they are not actually effective also. Now, secondly, whenever any government agency or election commission is aggrieved by any fake news or fake video through the social media, then they are supposed to contact the designated officers who are appointed as per 2009 rules. Now, these all companies are making the full page advertisements. They are claiming that we are running the fact check unit also.
Okay.
So why don't they disclose the details of in their advertisement about all the grievance officer and designated officers, so that, because whatsoever fact check units are there, that will be basically capital or lutiens zone only. Now in India, 6 lakhs villages are there. So how that grievance can be addressed by the centralized fact check unit? So people, all the candidates need to know to whom to contact whenever there is a fake news or a doctored video is there, so that they can directly contact the grievance officer or designated officer for removal of such fake news.
All right. Thank you very much, all four of you. Sanjay Jha, Virag Gupta, Prashanto Roy, as well as Jency Jacob. Thank you so much for joining us with these very, very important perspectives. We really hope we leave our viewers, who are tomorrow's voters, more equipped to understand these extremely divisive and challenging issues. Thank you very much for joining us.